About 2 years ago, I made this monster cuff, and, well, it's ugly now. Even my cat hates it. So today, I'm going to be showing you how to make a new and improved monster cuff, which is practically the same thing as the old one, but just a little bit more sturdy, colorful. Yeah, you get the gist of it. In this tutorial, you're going to need a few materials. One of the first things you'll need is string, and a lot of it. So a new roll of string is preferred. You're going to need some scissors. Doesn't really matter what size. In fact, here is a bigger pair that I own. As long as it can cut the string, that's fine. This next material is not required. However, plastic yarn needles, otherwise known as Kandi needles, are great for cuffs like these and will help you thread through your beads a lot quicker. And finally, beads. You're going to need a lot of beads, and this isn't even half of the beads that I show. Once you have all your materials, you are ready to start. We're going to start off with 2 colors. Our black will be our secondary color for every single layer, and then our pink, you could use any color, but I'm using pink, will be our main color for the first layer. Also, to make things a tad bit easier, using some sort of container to store your beads while you make this is very easy. If you don't have that, just a bowl will work, and it makes it a lot easier to grab your beads. You're going to start off your pattern with the 2 main and 1 secondary, and you're going to thread it onto your string. I personally am going to do this 16 times. However, you could do it less, you could do it more. The original monster cuff is 18 times. However, I'm just doing 16 to make this tutorial a little bit easier on me. Once you get that pattern all in there, you're going to tie it up. And once you tie it, you're going to make sure you are coming out of a black bead, as so. And then you're going to put the following main, secondary, main pattern onto your string, and then thread it through the black bead next to it. Once you are done threading that through, you're going to do that all around the single you have made. Once that is done, it should look like this. And you're going to make sure you're coming out of a black bead on the top layer, and then you are going to repeat that pattern of main, secondary, main, and thread it through the black bead next to it on the top layer, not the bottom layer. And it should look like this, and you're going to do that all around. This is what 2 X's will look like, and this is what 3 X's will look like. And this is what it will look like once you've done 5 X's. And you're going to now add 2 pink beads once you're coming out of that black bead on the top. Thread it through the next black bead on the top. And then you are once again going to do that all around the cuff. Once you have done that all around a cuff, you're going to make sure you're poking out of a black bead, and then you're going to put the following color with your next layer of main with 2 mains, 1 secondary, 2 mains, and then you're going to thread it to the black bead next to it, like so. Then you will proceed to do that all around the cuff. Once you are done with that, you're going to be poking out of a black bead on the top, and you are going to want to put 2 of your main colors onto the string, and then you're going to want it to go through that black bead, not directly underneath it, but underneath that, right there. And then you're going to thread it through like so. And then, once you are done with that, you are going to grab 2 more of your main color, put it on the string, and thread it through the black bead on the top, like so. Like a zigzag pattern, and you're going to do that all around. Once you are done with that, you are going to be poking out of a black bead. However, you want to be poking out of that black bead below it right there. So you're going to thread your string down the 2 orange beads into the black bead so that you are poking out of that black bead. Then you are going to apply the pattern of 2 mains, 1 secondary, 2 mains onto your string and thread it through the black bead next to it. It's going to look like this, and you're going to do that all around the cuff. Once you are done with that, it should look like this, and you are now going to add into that bead 2 of your main color. Basically what we did the first time on this layer, and we're going to do it again. Once you are done with that, it should look like this, and you're going to add 2 more and go into the black bead on the top, and you're going to do that all around. This is what it'll look like when you are done with that, and you're just going to repeat that process of going into the bottom black bead, threading your 5 bead pattern, and then doing your zigzag pattern. This is what it'll look like after you've done that a 3rd time. And this is what it'll look like when you are complete. You're going to want to be threaded out of a black bead on the top. And then you're going to put your 3rd main color, 3 of those, a secondary, and 3 more. You're going to go into the black bead next to it. And then you're going to do that all around the cuff. Once you're done with that, you're going to want to be sticking out of those secondary bead. And you're going to want to thread 3 of your main beads into the black bead below it. Then you are going to grab 3 more of your main color and then thread it through the black bead on the top next to it. It'll look like this, and you will do this all around. And once you're done with that, you want to be threaded out of that orange bead below it and doing the same thing. You're going to put this pattern on, and then you're going to go into the black bead next to it, like so. And then once again, all around. This is what your cuff will look like so far once you have done all of the 3rd layer. You are now going to put 4 of your next color, secondary, 4 of your next color. And then you're going to thread it through the next black bead. And then once again, you're going to go all around the cuff. Then once you are done with that, you want to be sticking out of a black bead on the top layer. And you're going to want to put 4 more of your main color into the bead, the black bead below it. And then you're going to add 4 more of your main color and thread it into the black bead next to it on the top. And you are going to do this all around the cuff. Once you are done with that layer, it should look like this, and you could start to see the shape of the monster cuff starting to build up. Then you're going to be threaded out of that bead below it once again. You're going to put your pattern on, and then you're going to thread it into the black bead next to it. And then once again, all around. This is what your 4th layer will look like when it is done. We're going to start the 5th layer by sticking out the black bead, adding 5 of your main, a secondary, then 5 of your main, and going into the black bead next to it. Once you are done with that, you're going to do that all around the cuff once again. And then once you're sticking out of that black bead on the top, you're going to add 5 more of your main color and thread it into that black bead below it. And then you're going to add 5 more and add it to the top black bead right next to it. Again, zigzag all around the cuff. This is what it'll look like when it's upside down to make it a little easier. You're going to add your pattern once again once you're sticking out of that bottom black bead and go into the black bead next to it. Once you thread it through, you're going to do that all around the cuff. Finally, you're going to stick out of that black bead, go into the bottom other black bead, add 5 more, thread it through, add 5 more of your main color, go into that top black bead, and thread it through. You're going to do that all around. Finally, I forgot to record that part, but you're going to add 6 of your main, a secondary, 6 more, thread it through the next black bead, and do it all around. And finally, the last part, you're going to add 6 more into that bottom black bead. And once you thread it through, you're going to add 6 more and thread it through into that top black bead. Once you are done with that, you're going to zigzag all around the cuff, and voila! You're done! You did it! You made a monster cuff! Oh my gosh! Look at how big this thing is! And before you ask, yes, this is me being able to wear it. Alright? Last time I got comments of it being, it's too small! But, yeah, no. Here it is. Bye!